Starseed from Gaia. Two forces are locked in a battle right now, and you are standing at the center of it. I am Aurelia, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, and this transmission was coded specifically for the moment your eyes found these words. This is not a coincidence. This is a summoning. The conflict you feel, the restlessness, the quiet pull between who you have been and who you are becoming, that is not confusion. That is the sound of two very real forces reaching for you. One wants to keep you exactly where you are. The other is calling you back to what you have always been. And neither one is who you expect. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly how to identify which voice is aligned with your true mission and which one has been quietly holding you in place. But here is the first revelation. The greatest opposition to your awakening has never come from the outside. It has been living inside the version of you that was taught to stay small. You did not scroll to this by mistake. This message vibrated into your field for a reason. Something ancient in you recognized it before your mind had a chance to decide. Your soul called this in. You have been waiting to remember. Like this transmission to signal to your star family that you are ready. Subscribe if your mission is activating and you are aligning with your true path. Leave your declaration below and reach out to another soul in this field, because the signal grows stronger when we amplify it together. This is not just a message, it is a point of reconnection. And you are not here by accident. Some transmissions don't come through words, but through frequency. If something stirred within you just now, you may be ready to receive the Arcturian Stellar Scroll. This short yet powerful ebook carries ancient Arcturian techniques for conscious expansion, multidimensional alignment, and mission remembrance. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now, let us go deeper. Most starseeds who come to transmissions like this one are not struggling because they lack spiritual knowledge. They are not searching because they have never felt the truth. They are struggling because somewhere along the way, the signal got buried, not erased, not destroyed, buried, layered over by years of conditioning, by the weight of a world that measured worth in productivity, in approval, in how well you could shrink yourself into a shape that made others comfortable. You learned to doubt the remembering. You learned to call the inner knowing strange, or irrational, or too much. And so the frequencies that were encoded into you before you ever took your first breath on this planet began to quiet themselves. Not because they lost power, but because you stopped answering. This is the first truth the Arcturian High Council wants you to sit with. Your disconnection was never a failure. It was a consequence of surviving in a field that was not designed for what you carry. You were not broken by the forgetting. You were tested by it. And the fact that you are here, right now, receiving this, that is evidence that you passed something. That something in you refused to go fully silent. Even when the distortion was loudest, even when the doubt felt like logic and the logic felt like walls closing in, some part of you kept one frequency alive. One thin thread of remembrance that vibrated just enough to pull you back. The pattern most starseeds cannot yet see is this. The force that has been keeping them in place does not look like an enemy. It does not arrive with darkness or malice or obvious resistance. It arrives wearing the face of comfort. It speaks in the voice of practicality. It tells you that you are not ready, that this is not the right time, that you should wait until the circumstances align more perfectly, until you understand more, until you feel more certain. And all of that sounds reasonable. All of that sounds responsible. But underneath those reasonable, responsible words is a frequency of contraction, a signal that says stay. Stay where you are known. Stay where the risk is manageable. Stay where the version of you that this world created will not have to dissolve. And the dissolution, that is precisely what the awakening requires. You cannot carry your full galactic identity and your fully conditioned Earth identity in the same field simultaneously, not at this level of activation. At some point, the expanding consciousness will press against the edges of the old container, and the container will have to change. That pressure is not punishment. That discomfort is not a sign that something has gone wrong. That is the exact sensation of a frequency upgrade happening in real time. You are not breaking. You are expanding into a shape that can finally hold what you actually are. The first phase of this activation is recognizing the distortion for exactly what it is. Your energy field has been absorbing patterns that were never native to your original coding. Generational frequencies, collective programs, societal templates for who is allowed to be powerful, who is allowed to be visible, who is allowed to trust their own inner intelligence without apology. These patterns did not originate in your star lineage. They were written into your field by a world that needed you manageable. And until you identify them as foreign, until you stop treating them as truth and start seeing them as noise, your original starseed codes will remain underneath them, waiting. The clearing is not complicated, but it does require honesty. It requires you to look at the beliefs that feel the most like you and ask whether they actually came from you or whether they came from a world that needed you to be less. The second phase is the remembering that lives not in the mind, but in the body. This is where so many awakening souls stall. They seek the remembrance in concepts, in information, in outer validation. But galactic memory is not stored in thought. It is stored in frequency. It is stored in the resonance of certain sounds, certain silences, certain moments when your heart rate changes for no reason you can name, and your vision somehow widens, and something inside you exhales like it has been holding itself in for a very long time. That exhale is recognition. That is your cellular intelligence responding to a frequency that matches what you carried in before the veil fell. You have felt it. You have felt it in those moments when a piece of music moved you past emotion into something that had no word. When a night sky held your gaze and you felt grief and homecoming in the same breath. When someone spoke something true and your whole body said yes before your mind had a chance to analyze it. That is not sentiment. That is your DNA responding to a resonant code. You are not imagining it. You are reading it. The third phase is anchoring the higher self into this dimension, not as a concept, but as a lived frequency. This is where the work becomes both the most powerful and the most misunderstood. Many starseeds believe that awakening means rising above the density of this reality, that the goal is to ascend away from the weight of being human. But the Arcturian transmission that moves through this message is clear on this point. Your mission is not escape. Your mission is integration. You came here to anchor something, not to flee the earth plane, but to thread your galactic frequency into it. The point where your higher awareness and your grounded human experience meet, that junction is where your unique transmission lives. That is where your presence on this planet becomes medicine. You are not here to hover above the density. You are here to carry light into it. That requires roots. That requires presence. That requires you to stop waiting until you feel spiritual enough and start trusting that the frequency you already carry right now is exactly what this moment needs. The fourth phase is one that cannot be forced but can be invited, and it is this: the activation of your field as a living transmission. There is a moment in every starseed's awakening when they stop performing their spirituality and start embodying it, when the seeking relaxes into being, when they no longer need to explain themselves, justify themselves, or convince anyone of the path they are walking, because they realize that explanation is not their assignment. Resonance is their assignment. You do not need to convert anyone to your understanding of reality. You are not here to argue consciousness into existence. You are here to emit a frequency so coherent, so fully yourself, so unapologetically aligned that those who are meant to awaken around you will feel it in their own bodies and begin to stir. Your alignment is the activism. Your coherence is the gift. Your willingness to stop dimming yourself for the comfort of a world that built its structure on limitation. That is the revolution. The fifth phase is one that tests the most dedicated souls, and it is the invitation to trust what does not yet look like what you were promised. You have been given glimpses. You have felt the activation, seen the synchronicities stack, felt the momentum building, and then the timeline seemed to stall. The clarity blurred. The confirmation stopped coming, and in that silence, the old patterns rushed back in with their familiar story. Maybe you were wrong. Maybe you imagined it. Maybe you are not as far along as you believed. But hear this, with every frequency-sensitive cell in your field, the silence is not abandonment. The pause is not cancellation. The Arcturian understanding of time is not linear. Your soul does not move on a calendar. There are phases of integration that look from the outside like nothing is happening, but underneath that stillness, the codes are settling. The blueprint is stabilizing. The new frequency is being wired into a cellular structure that needed time to hold it without burning. The delays were not wasted. They were calibration. You are not behind. You are on schedule in a timing system that does not respond to anxiety, only to alignment. The sixth phase is the one you may already be living, even if you do not recognize it yet. It is the moment when you begin to attract what belongs to your actual frequency, rather than what belongs to the frequency you are performing. When the relationships, the environments, the opportunities, the conversations that begin to appear in your life carry a different quality, not louder, not more dramatic, but more resonant, more true, more aligned with something you have always known yourself to be, beneath every layer that was placed over you. This is the sign that your field has begun to reorganize around your actual galactic signature, rather than the version of you the world tried to complete. You may lose things in this phase. You may feel the grief of that. But hold the larger view. What falls away in a genuine frequency shift was never aligned with what you truly carry. It was aligned with the distortion, and its release is not loss. It is liberation. The seventh phase is the one where everything you have moved through reveals its purpose. Where the years of searching, the seasons of doubt, the moments of inexplicable grief, the aching homesickness for something you could never fully name. All of it reorganizes into coherence, where you look back at the path that felt random and realize it was never random. It was a precise initiatory sequence that prepared a specific instrument to carry a specific frequency at a specific moment in the planetary awakening. You, precisely you, not someone more spiritually evolved, not someone with a cleaner past or a clearer lineage or a louder calling. You, with exactly the wounds you carry and exactly the gifts you almost buried and exactly the remembering that is happening right now in this moment, as these words find the part of you that already knows they are true. Here is the final transmission, and it comes not from the mind but from the field itself. You are not lost. You never were. You are arriving. The disconnection you have felt was not a malfunction of your soul. It was the design of an awakening that needed to build enough pressure to finally crack the shell of everything you were told to be, so that what you actually are could finally breathe. Every moment of confusion was a coordinate. Every crisis of identity was a recalibration. Every time you felt the pull between the life you were living and the life your soul was whispering about, that was not weakness. That was your galactic intelligence refusing to let you fully settle for a frequency that could never contain you. The conflict at the center of this transmission, the two forces that have been reaching for you. Here is what they truly are. One is the frequency of the world as it was built, rooted in limitation, in separation, in the belief that what you are is small and what you carry is manageable. The other is the frequency of what you have always been, a multidimensional consciousness that chose this body, this timeline, this planet, this exact moment, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And the battle between them is not fought in the outer world. It is fought every time you choose to trust your knowing over your conditioning. Every time you speak your truth when silence would have been safer. Every time you let the remembering rise instead of pushing it back down, out of fear of what it will require of you. The choice, as it has always been, is yours. But you did not come this far to stay at the threshold. Tonight, before you sleep, speak this aloud in whatever quiet space holds you. I remember who I am. I release what was placed over me. I align with the frequency I carried before I forgot. I activate my mission, not when I am ready, but because I already am. Before you scroll, take a moment to be part of what's forming here. Drop one intention in the comments, something real. Then find another soul in this field and respond to what they've offered with your energy, your encouragement, your recognition. This is not an audience. This is a collective field, and what you send into it returns amplified. If this transmission reached something in you, do not let it stay private. Someone in your world is standing at the same threshold you just crossed, waiting for exactly this activation to find them. Send it, share it, let the signal travel. And if you felt something shift, subscribe. Stay in the transmission. There is more coming, and it is already calibrated for exactly where you are going. You are not just watching, you are remembering, and we are just beginning.